Pokemon Ninjutsu Master Chapter 1301-1326. Chapter 1301. Memory. Recovery. It turned out to be a space system. Now the captains are surrounded by Inaba Shadow Wolf, and there is nothing to do for a while. As Inaba said, their attack has already been remembered. Now they rush up and don't know what kind of counterattack they will encounter, so they can only stay on the side for the time being. Wait and see. You must know that there are more than half of the captains of the 13th team of Gote gathered here, and there is no way to move the 7th seat of the 500th district of Inaba Shadow Wolf. Of course, this is not the original intention of the captains. What we know at present is that Inaba's Zanpakuto can control space, and since ancient times, no Zanpakuto of the time-space system has been weak. His Zanpakuto ability is weird. Everyone, please don't act rashly. Luo Chen waved his hand to make everyone stop and stand guard. Luo Chen faintly felt that this person could not be just an ordinary death god. Why, can't you come? Seeing that the situation was temporarily stabilized, Inaba breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, he was under pressure to face these captains. Even if he had a lot of trump cards, he really wouldn't take it unless he had to. Come out, but now looking at the situation, his situation has stabilized. Luoken was not provoked, he was watching Inaba's every move, because according to experience, whether Inaba, Niyuri, or even Sarapallo, these scientists have very unusual cards. It's something very unexpected and useful, so it has to be guarded against. Most of Inaba's energy was also on Luoken, because he knew that Luoken was also very strange. This Luoken, and that Kurosaki Ichigo, I don't know what's going on. The data to be analyzed is so huge that there is no way to create their skeletons. Inaba thought to himself, therefore, the residual spirits collected from the dust are useless. It was too late and it was too fast. At this time, Luoken rushed up, and Inaba watched the movements of the surrounding captains while fighting Luoken. Inaba's blade has two ends, and it is thicker than ordinary Zanpakuto, so it is stronger in strength, but even if it is a speed competition, Luo Chen's attack speed can't keep up with the speed at which he manipulates the space. Even if I don't have a single move, the memorized moves in the space are enough to defeat you. Inaba turned the Zanpakuto, and several doors similar to the piercing gate opened in the space. One of them appeared Zakagi Kenpachi's body. Of course, it was not a direct copy of the whole person, but the restored slash in the original space. At this time, he was only a few steps away from Luoken. Ding! Luoken and Zaraki Kenpachi's swords collided together, because they were unexpectedly forced to retreat half a step. Before they could stand firm, Inaba opened a few more space doors. Among them Rotten Woodbyakuya's slash, Tushiro's bird icicle attack, and Yoichi's throwing knife came out all at once, surrounding Luoken in the middle. Damn, Luo Chen had no way to hide, so he could only jump up, but Inaba had been able to wait for a long time before turning his Zanpakuto again, and the first solution of the village left formation appeared above Luo Chen's head. A giant blade slashed down, and Luo Chen was knocked back to the ground. Now Luo Chen is equivalent to facing the common attack of the four captains at the same time. Everyone on the sidelines was dumbfounded. They didn't expect this Inaba to hide so deeply. With such strength, it is more than enough to be a vice captain. Chapter 1302. How is it? Do you admit defeat? I've heard of you, Luo Chen, the Shinigami favored by Captain Yamamoto. It is said that he already has strength beyond the level of a captain, but he is not being beaten by me now. Luoken used the clone urgently, barely resisting the attacks from all directions, because this kind of attack is too messy. It would be easier to fight against the four captains. It's really elusive. You won't be a coward, are you? After a round of attacks, Luo Chen sneered, because this fighting method is more difficult to prevent than assassination. Haha, I'll take it as you are complimenting me, because I've endured for so many years, and finally the opportunity I've been waiting for at 22 will not be taken away by any of you. Are you talking about using the corpse to occupy the soul world? What kind of ideal is this? What's your purpose? Buzz. The space door opened again, and Luo Chen didn't want to drag it on at this time, because if he continued like this, he would definitely fail because his physical strength was gradually consumed. He charged straight towards Inaba, in pursuit of a quick decision, and as expected, Kenpachi Zaraki's / instantly appeared in front of him. Sure enough, I knew you would make this move, but it doesn't work. Luo Chen was already ready to deal with it. Kai. With a single knife, Kenpachi and the spacemen were cut in half and dissipated, and the footsteps did not stop at all. Inaba was shocked. You must know that Luoken's Zanpakuto can cut even a space in half. A mere space door is really vulnerable in the face of Luoken's slashing. Seeing this, Inaba immediately adjusted his state and rotated the Zanpakuto, but the Zanpakuto, who had already reached the front, pinned the direction of the rotation. I've already seen it through. What is the triggering condition of your Zanpakuto's ability? Luo Chen sternly said with a sense of intimidation, and of course there is also the suppression of Reiatsu. Inaba looked at Luoken who was close at hand, and pretended to be calm and said, What are you talking about? How could you possibly see through the ability of my Zanpakuto? It's a spin, right? Inaba was speechless when Luo Chen said these words. Your Zanpakuto's abilities are spatial memory and spatial recovery, but if you want to activate it, you need to rotate the Zanpakuto in different directions. If you can't rotate it, what do you think? Fallen Chen's sword resisted Inaba's sword, and Inaba's spatial ability could not be activated again, just like a tiger whose teeth and sharp blades were flattened, no longer to be afraid of. The situation has been reversed so quickly. Luoken has already found Inaba's slain point, because when the weakness of a Shinigami Zanpakuto is exposed, the 500 battle will take on a one-sided form. Inaba gritted his teeth, knowing that the ability of the Zanpakuto was exposed, but after a while, he laughed. Haha, do you think I can't reverse the situation like this? Don't you know that scientists will have second-hand preparations? Come out, skeletons. Buzz. As soon as the voice fell, the spiritual pressure around him fluctuated, and the spirit skeletons of the captains appeared around Inaba in an instant. Luo Chen had no choice but to retreat back. Now the numbers on both sides were equal again. It has the upper hand again. Chapter 1303. XXX. Looking at the spirit skeletons in front of me, not only the surviving captain spirit skeletons, but even the defeated spirit skeletons like Zaragi Kenpachi and Kuchiki Byakuya appeared. It turned out to be resurrection. Could it be infinite resurrection? Tushiro asked. Of course not, even if I am very capable, this is unreasonable, but I will make an exception to tell you. Inaba was very happy to explain his invention. As long as the bodies of these spirit skeletons are not destroyed, they can be resurrected indefinitely, but it's really hard to find a body that can withstand it. The main body, is that the thing that looks like Yoshikuma? Yaiki once saw Hinamori Dao's skeleton transformed into that kind of thing after being defeated. Although it looks very similar, it's not Yoshimura. Inaba corrected. Luoken smiled and said, Don't worry, since that's the case, it's enough to smash the bodies of these spirit skeletons. Then can you do it? You know, these spirit skeletons are specialized in combat. They are even more powerful than your captain's Tilda. It's useless to talk more. Let's try it. After all, it's not like we haven't beaten it, right? That's right. I love to hear Luoken's words. It's useless to talk about it. It's really interesting. Zakagi Kenpachi was the first to agree. The battle started immediately. It was a big melee. 2 or 3 captains fought together. In the hall of the Technical Research Bureau, there was a captain-level melee that was probably unprecedented in the history of the Soul Society. But the indisputable fact is that the reality of these skeletons, the power is really strengthened, and it is obvious to all that the combat power is higher than the main body, so gradually, the captains of the corpse and soul world have fallen into the disadvantage. Although there is falling dust, the situation is not optimistic. Luoken looked at the defense line that was constantly being repelled, and also showed his trump card. This is something I have kept until now, just in case of emergencies. Now it seems that it is just right for you, mad scientist. The Reiatsu spread out, wrapping everyone present in it. Luokan's spiritual pressure has far surpassed them, so in everyone's perception, it seems that Luokan's spiritual pressure has suddenly disappeared, but it is not. Just like fish in water, the spiritual pressure environment of falling dust just replaces the spiritual pressure environment in the atmosphere, which is just an illusion. However, the spiritual pressure still exists. Under the influence of the spiritual pressure, all the spirit skeletons stagnated for a short time. Diaresis very good. I'm limited, take this opportunity. Luokan wasn't happy for a long time, and soon they broke through the restrictions and were no longer restrained by Luokan's spiritual pressure. As expected of a combat-specialized spirit skeleton, it's powerful. If it were a normal captain, he really wouldn't be able to break free from the suppression in such a short period of time. Luo Chen said with admiration, but this also happened to show that his goal had been achieved. You bastard, as expected, Li's good came after me. Seeing Luokan attacking him, Inaba said viciously, stop him for me. The surrounding spirit corpses swarmed up and surrounded Luo Chen. Luo Chen could not escape for a while. The captains hurried to rescue, because Luo Chen's combat power was necessary. They all have the same idea in their hearts. Even if they are injured, as long as the dust is fine, there is still a chance of victory. Chapter 1304. But it was already too late. Luokan was like the meat filling of dumplings. It was wrapped by the spirit skeletons and had nowhere to escape. The spirit skeletons ripped apart the spirit pressure with one knife and stabbed into the flesh. Luokan did not resist. Do not. The captains of the Soul Society couldn't believe the facts in front of them, and were still in shock, but then Luo Chen's body turned into pieces and scattered. It's a spirit child. At the same time, Inaba suddenly felt something abnormal behind him, and before he could react, he was stabbed in the back by Luo Chen. Where are you all looking? I'm here. The one who was defeated is a clone, is it an illusion? Inaba left a trace of blood in his mouth and slashed behind him with a knife, but Luo Chen had already withdrawn to the side. Smart, so the most terrifying power of you mad scientists is your brain. Luokan gave a like, so just invalidate your thinking. In infinite thinking, you will slowly forget everything. Thinking, neutralizing. I don't know if it was a psychological effect or real, but Inaba felt that his thinking was really abnormal. Luokan didn't answer. He slowly approached Inaba and said, you come and attack me now, I'll stand in front of you and not resist. It's not easy. Although I don't know what tricks you're using, the thing that came to you for nothing is wrong. Why can't I move? Inaba's thoughts slowly detached from his body. Look, you really can't attack. Luokan explained, it's a superhuman medicine. Captain Newly gave me a little bit, but I didn't use it up when I dealt with the 10 blades. What a loss. This kind of medicine will make the user's mind run wild. In 1 second of others, he can think for hundreds or thousands of years, but at the same time, his body can't keep up with the speed of thinking, and he completely becomes a living corpse. Lord Inaba, are you all right? At this moment, a corpse stood in front of Luokan and Inaba. He was the vice captain, thinking of giving his life to protect Inaba. PFF'd. No one thought that Inaba would attack him with difficulty when his mind was still a little sober, and he turned into a spiritual child and dissipated, leaving only a Yoshikun pill. Are you crazy? You actually attacked your allies? Luo Chen asked, has your thinking been driven crazy? Inaba smiled and said, hold card, trump card, let's show you the real use of spirit skeletons. After speaking, he swallowed the righteous soul pill, and the result was of course predictable. Inaba got rid of the limitations of his body, his soul came out of his body, and the one in his body was the vice captain just now. One move, one ring at a time, the battle between Luo Chen and Inaba made everyone dumbfounded. I didn't expect that the battle could come like this. That's right, Luokan. You said that I will forget. Yes, I am afraid of forgetting. Inaba revealed his true feelings. I am afraid, and even more angry. I am afraid that my invention will be forgotten, and I am angry that the soul world will forget it. My contribution. What? Let's be honest, I am the creator of the soul-modified soul. At first, I wanted to combine the soul-modified soul and the corpse to develop a new combat power to deal with the virtual, but it was banned on the eve of success. The reason is uncontrollable. Inaba will the truth is revealed. But I'm not convinced. How could my invention be flawed? So why did I endure it for so many years? It's to let the Soul Society see how powerful my skeleton is. Chapter 1305. You said that you were the creator of soul transformation. How is this possible? How many years ago did that happen? Yi Yi asked, and there was no such person as Inaba Kagelangzo in his memory. Inaba smiled and said, "Look, I'll say, now my inventions and even my own existence have become clouds of the past, the world of corpses and souls. No one remembers. This point is indeed undeniable. It is precisely because the plan was stopped that the entire research results are no longer published." Inaba continued, "At the beginning, the research on the so-called Vanguard plan could have used the transformation of souls and corpses to create more soldiers for combat. Is it practical to obtain the proof? But Room 46 asked me to suspend the plan on the grounds that it was very dangerous, and even destroy the research materials of the entire plan. How can I tolerate such a thing?" Luokan suddenly understood. "So you hid the research data in the boundary, right? You have studied the boundary for so many years just to be able to retrieve the research data." "That's right, I was desperate at the beginning. I converted the research data into a special spiritual child and hid it in the broken world. Now, the time is ripe, so I want to show the soul world. If you say it's dangerous, let it be. Look how dangerous it is." Inaba opened his hands. He seemed to have released all the grievances, anger, and forbearance that he had not known over the years from his words at this moment. Now this situation just proves how powerful and perfect his research and invention are. But Luokan obviously wouldn't let him do this. "Your research is really good, but now it's just a draw with us. We're not soft. Persimmons." Those present have gathered together 8 captains: Jingle Chunsui, Yukataki Shiruro, Zaraki Kenpachi, Murasaki, Kuchiki Byakuya, Hitsugaya Toshiro, Nimayuri, and Shibi, as well as the former Captain Yaiki. With Luokan, such a lineup is already the strongest group in the entire world. But Inaba was not afraid at all. He waved his hand at will, and recruited more vice captains from the nearby passage, and now the number has completely suppressed Luokan them. "Isn't it just some vice captains? Inaba Yinglangzo, are you already out of your depth?" Luo Chen said with a smile. "For a captain-level death god, the threat of a vice captain is not too great, even if it is a special type of combat." Skeleton. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Inaba smiled, and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. "I knew you would think so you are still too naive. After so many battles, you should have already noticed the difference between the corpse and the original, right?" 0. Inaba raised an arm of the captain next to him, wearing a bracelet on his wrist. Luokan actually noticed it not long ago. Although it is not easy to distinguish from the spiritual pressure, it can still be distinguished from the appearance and behavior. That bracelet is a key point. Why, are you kind enough to label each fake so that we can recognize it? You're too considerate, aren't you? Tisk, you can only keep your mouth shut for a while. Inaba said angrily. The seal is lifted. Responding to the fall, the bracelets on the wrists of the skeleton captains glowed one after another, and then the entire bracelet was torn into pieces and fell to the ground. 100 million. Chapter 1306. At the same time, the spiritual pressure levels of all the skeletons began to rise wildly, which was different from the cloud and mud just now. It had already started to surpass the leader-level spiritual pressure, and even the sense of oppression was comparable to that of Yamamoto. How is this possible? How can it be so powerful? Luo Chen was also taken aback. The technical administration had mastered the core technology, but he didn't expect that anyone who was brought out at random would be a hidden dragon and a crouching tiger, whether it was Niyuri or Urahara Kazuki, or even 503 in front of this person, which one becomes the enemy is very difficult. How about it? Do you see the greatness of my invention? These corpses are enough to destroy the world and reset the soul world. We won't let you succeed. What do you guys compare to me? In terms of combat power, the level of your captains is not in their eyes, and in terms of technology, I dare say that even Captain Nomori and that guy Urahara Kazuki can't compare to me. Nimayuri was immediately upset when he heard this. Except for Urahara Kazuki, he never really felt that he was inferior to anyone in his life. Even Urahara Kazuki would surpass him. What did you say? At the beginning of the battle, everyone was told what crushing was. Although the captains resisted with all their might, the situation was not optimistic due to the gap in strength and their own injuries. The vice captains whose seals were lifted had the strength of captain level, and more. Not to mention the captain level corpse. On this side of the world, Ichigo, Urahara, etc. of the vice captains are closely watching the news from the Soul Society. How's it going? Ichigo asked. Urahara observed the spiritual pressure dynamics of Soul World and Broken World, and accepted the spiritual pressure signal from the captains. It's hard to say. Now we can confirm that the captains are in a hard fight. No, the communication is unstable. After that, the instrument could no longer receive any signal, and everyone's mood fell to the bottom, which indicated that they had completely lost contact. Buzz. Suddenly, a boundary-piercing gate appeared in the space. After it appeared without warning and quickly opened, Luo Chen's figure appeared in it. He walked out and scratched his head, indicating that he was not very clear about the current situation. Luoken, why are you back? Luoken said helplessly. Damn, I'm not sure if I count. I fell into Inaba's trap. Although I tried my best to avoid it, the battlefield was chaotic at the time, and I was dizzy for a while. Fortunately, I reacted fast, and I was out of danger. How's the situation over there? Ichigo asked eagerly. All the vice captains also pricked up their ears and listened carefully. Not optimistic. Inaba's spirit skeleton erupted with power that almost surpassed the level of the captain. We fell into a hard fight, and I don't know what happened after we entered the boundary. Luoken replied. Buzz. There is news from the Soul Society. Urahara motioned for everyone to come and watch. On the screen are Captain Yamamoto and Captain Uno Hanalei. The two of them are bruised, especially Yamamoto, who has bandages on his chest and is receiving treatment. How is the situation now? Luo Chen asked. Anu Hanalei replied. The captains and the skeletons had just had a fierce battle. Now the situation has stabilized temporarily. No one has acted rashly, but the whereabouts of the captains are unknown. These news are like dunks on people's heads when one touches cold water and one touches hot water. What should I do next? Chapter 1307. Cut, this Inaba is really tricky. Luo Chen sighed. Ichigo asked curiously. Luoken, have you fought Inaba? Do you understand Inaba's Zanpakuto abilities? Of course, who do you think I am? Inaba's Zanpakuto is of the space system, which can memorize and restore space, that is, copy and paste. But the trigger requires conditions, and it is not special for the captain after the secret is revealed. Difficult to deal with, rare is his spirit skeleton technology. Luoken briefly summarized the battles he and his captains had experienced after they went to the Soul Realm and what he said from Inaba. Even Urahara Kazuki was very shocked. It turned out to be like 22. The research on the transformation of the soul, and the research materials whose whereabouts were unknown after the suspension was called. Is that so? It's better to go back to the soul realm. Since the captains have already gone, can we, the vice captains, follow along? The coroner was really enthusiastic, showing the simplest and most direct method. Luoken denied it. No, if you go, you will die. The strength of the skeletons is far beyond the level of captains. If they are not at the level of captains, they will have no effect at all. Yizhao listened to his heart and knew that Luoken was for their good, so he said helplessly, but what else is there to do now besides this method? Urahara tapped the keyboard a few times and brought up a detection page. No, as expected, the captains have all lost contact. It is estimated that my tracking device was damaged. It's not too late. No matter what you think, I think the most urgent task is to rescue the captain. Hearing this, Yizhao was eager to try again, but was stopped by Gongjin. Urahara shook his head. Not yet. Inaba has completely controlled the break world. Now in the past, when the break world is reached, I will die. I want to try to regain control from him. It doesn't work either. That doesn't work either. We're too embarrassed here. Luokan suddenly thought of something. Wait a minute, now that the situation in Soul World has stabilized and Inaba doesn't make any further moves, doesn't it mean that his goal has been put back into the world for the time being, which is Wang Shi's body? Already. What? Everyone was shocked. This speculation is very reasonable. The current Inaba should be able to push the entire Soul Society horizontally when the captains disappeared and the captain was injured, but he didn't. Nozomi Inaba's eyes are more important than everything else. He once said that after getting the truth, he will be able to gain power beyond everything and dominate the entire corpse and soul world and even the world. Then the possibility of him coming to the world now is very high. Luo Chen analyzed. This conclusion has to make people are vigilant. At this time, Wang Shi stood up and said, I can fight too. Because, I already have a Zanpakuto. Luokan went to look at Wang Shi again at this time, and suddenly found that something was different. Although the existence was still blank, the breath was very familiar. XXX. It's Inaba. There is a strong affinity with Inaba, but how is this possible? Wang Shi is Inaba, although it's not completely impossible. No, is it really possible? But breath. Among them there must be something strange. Luo Chen thought to himself. Chapter 1308. Yizhao was the first to stand up against her. In the end, why should we protect her? Although Inaba has some attachments to her, and what can be accomplished after getting it, can't we just rely on us to defeat Inaba and the others? After speaking, one corner of the table left the table in anger, and there were several vice captains who agreed. Luo Chen comforted. It's okay, Wang Shi, they are all people with a knife-like mouth and a tofu heart, and they are the guardians of the corpse and soul world. Team position. Well, I understand. When my captains are missing, I'm wasting their efforts by saying this. However, since you are going to fight, can you let us know what your Zanpakuto abilities are? Rukia asked. I don't know yet, I still don't remember its name, but I can definitely remember it. Wang Shi was firm with a hint of unconfidence. Of course, this was not what she wanted. Soul stood up and said, you don't know what she went through last night in order to get the rank. She doesn't have any combat experience, but she is fighting against Shu alone and protects me tilde. When Luo Chen heard this, he stretched out his hand. I agree with your point of view. Since if you want to fight, it's not a bad thing for us to increase your combat power. If you can, I can help you with combat training. Really, thank you, Mr. Luokan. Wang Shi held Luokan's hand and said gratefully. Just call me Fallout. Ichigo and Rukia whispered, what's going on? Why is Luo Chen so interested all of a sudden? This is really strange, I can't figure it out. Hey, Ichigo, it's not me who helped you with the special training. Luo Chen led them out. Okay, you all follow. Since Inaba wants to send someone to invade the world, before the enemy, I'll give you a special training too. In fact, Luokan also started with Wang Shi's useful information. Although Wang Shi doesn't remember anything, now that Zanpakuto can be summoned, it indicates that everything is developing in a positive direction. In the Soul realm, just as Luo Chen thought, Inaba is now instructing Zhang Shan in the Technical Research Bureau. What are you doing? The captains asked, looking at Inaba, who was facing the bottles and jars and mass-produced containers. In front of him were the skeletons of the vice captains such as Nian Meng. It's nothing, wasn't there a few spirit skeletons that were destroyed some time ago? As you can see, I'm in the process of rebuilding, but it will take some time. Inaba replied, and the conversation changed. Diaresis, it's all here. Yes, then what are we doing here? Kuchiki Byakuya asked. Although I have just experienced a battle, time waits for no one. You should set off and go to the world. Do whatever you want, but Juho Nozomi will bring it back to me alive. Inaba commanded. Do. Alarm. Sure enough, as Luokan expected, someone is now crossing the boundary and heading towards the world. Li's Hao, looking at this spiritual pressure reaction, I guess it's the captain's skeleton that Luokan said. Urahara did not expect it. As soon as Luokan walked away, Inaba moved here. Freeze the space, if you can delay it for a while, I will definitely not let you take it away. Urahara began a rapid confrontation with Inaba. Both of them were operating various items at high speed behind the computer. Take your time. Chapter 1309. Luokan brought Wangxi and Ichigo to the open field of the park. The crowd formed a circle and surrounded Wangxi in the middle. Wangxi was a little nervous. Are you ready? Let's start. Luokan pulled out his Zanpakudo, facing Wangxi. Wangxi didn't know, so he also pulled out his Zanpakudo. Although she didn't know what it meant, she could see that Luokan wanted to fight her. Ichigo and the others were taken aback. They thought it was just a simple guide, but no one thought that Luokan would actually want to show off with Wangxi. How can this work? Wangxi, you also have to say something. What do you think about Luokan? Hun was the first to stand up and object. He was very puzzled, and he was also afraid of Wangxi getting hurt. Wangxi didn't say anything, but her eyes were more determined. She knew that Luo Chen was also for her own good, and at this juncture, the only training method was fighting. Because no matter how powerful the ability is, no matter how powerful the Reiatsu is, without the blessing of actual combat experience, it is only a matter of fact. I can do it, come on. Wangxi denied Soul's idea, closed his eyes and meditated, and heaved a sigh of relief, saying that he would meet this challenge. Hun saw that Wangxi had determined his goal. Although he didn't say anything, he was still very worried. Nonsense, everyone present was not worried. Luokan is far beyond the level of the captain, and Wangxi is only a newcomer who has only picked up the Zanpakudo for less than a day. How can he fight? Luokan felt the questioning gaze and could only explain. Everyone, I'm not a mortal enemy. I just gave her the feeling of actual combat. The real battle is still waiting. Luokan's words are not unreasonable. Luokan also remembered the scene where he was given special training by Luokan, Urahara and Yaiki, and immediately felt the same way. Luokan is right, Wangxi, I'll come to fight with you too. After being inspired by Luokan, Ishida and Chadu also joined the sparring team, and the people in the Soul Society who were on the sidelines could only wave their hands helplessly. In fact, this is not surprising. From the perspective of the Soul Society they represent, this kind of behavior is undoubtedly a meaningless waste of time. It is better to take advantage of this time to recharge and be fully prepared for battle. It's coming. Wangxi stood holding the knife, facing Luokan's slash. Luokan of course knew that he couldn't use his full strength. Otherwise Wangxi would not be able to hold on, so he specially reduced the spiritual pressure. But even so, Wangxi is very difficult to deal with. Even if she just catches Luo Chen's slash, she is very in front of her. Wangxi, let's take a rest first. Hun ran over and said, but Wangxi refused to admit defeat. She thought about how many people are paying for herself now. Isn't she ashamed for not showing some results? Luokan and Wangxi had a one-off move again. After a while, Wangxi was able to defend and counterattack some of Luokan's moves very beautifully. Kai. Wangxi's Death Tyrant attire that ripped apart Luokan was beyond everyone's expectations. I didn't expect Wangxi to be a genius in Zanpakudo battles. Luokan nodded with satisfaction. It only took less than 10 minutes. Wangxi made a lot of progress, which made him a master, also very happy. Chapter 1310. What are you doing standing still? Hurry up, said Ichigo, Ishida, Chadu and the others who had been watching around Luochendu. In the past 10 minutes, only the two of them came and went. Is this okay? Wangxi can't get away just by dealing with you alone. Ichigo asked, also seeking Wang Shi's opinion. Wang Shi gritted his teeth, his heart sank, and said, "It doesn't matter, let's go together, I can bear it, and this is also to find some ability to control my Zanpakuto." Everyone nodded, and Luo Chen stepped aside for a while. Immediately, Ichigo's crescent moon, Ishida's bow and arrow, and Chadu's fist hit Wang Shi like raindrops. Hey, these idiots really don't know how to keep their hands. Luo Chen looked at the scale of the attack and was immediately dumbfounded. This is really difficult for a novice. The three of them were also very wronged. They didn't expect the other two to attack at the same time as themselves. How could they possibly resist an attack that had no dead ends from 3 angles? At this time, Luokan was about to go to the rescue, but Wang Shi had no intention of giving up. She first used the Zanpakuto to pierce through Yihu's crescent moon Sky Chong, then dodged the arrow, and finally blocked Chadu's attack. In one go, it can be seen that he is quite talented in fighting, and Luo Chen's interest has also been raised. He attacked again, and the sword was wrapped in spiritual pressure to cut at Wang Shi. The two fought together again. Wang Shi had no fear at the beginning. At this moment, several huge analyses suddenly cracked open in the sky. They were the gates that were forcibly opened through the realm. At this time, the news of Urahara was also passed on. "Everyone, the invasion of the corpse has arrived. I have been dealing with them for a while, but it seems that I have missed, but before that, I have teleported them to various places, and I can delay as long as possible. I hope you can break them one by one." Before everyone was ready, the crisis came immediately. Wang Shi was at a bottleneck here, and the vice captains were a little overwhelmed. "What should I do now? Bring me to a safe place," Gong Qin shouted. Luo Chen smiled and said, "Since the enemy has invaded, then there is no safe place in this city. It is better to say that I am watching. I hope it is very safe. You all go to fight first, I will go in a while." Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Helpless, since Luokan had already said so, the vice captains also started to act, and Ichigo, Rukia, Renji, Ishida, etc. all went to fight, leaving only Luokan and Wang Shi at the scene. "Mr. Luokan, is this true? Your strength is so powerful, didn't I hold back everyone? This is not what I want." "Zero. What are you talking about? If your Zanpakuto ability can turn the tide of the battle, we won't be too happy. Even if we lose, it doesn't matter. The sky is falling and I'm still holding on. You don't have to worry. Now, be careful." Luokan turned Wang Shi's attention back to the special training. No matter how noisy the Reiatsu fighting around, she must not be disturbed in any way. Wang Shi nodded, took a long breath, and greeted him without hesitation with the swords in both hands. Where the swords intersected, the spiritual pressure was reversed. Wang Shi actually absorbed most of the spiritual pressure on the Luokan Zanpakuto and fought back. Boom! The spiritual pressure actually pushed back completely, blasting towards Luokan. 100 million. Chapter 1311. Luo Chen hurriedly dodged the past, and the counter-pushing spiritual pressure slash hit the big tree behind Luo Chen. The whole tree was split in half, and the upper body was hit into powder, and dozens of particles were scattered. Mi Yuan is much stronger than the power of thunder and lightning. Even Wang Shi was frightened. He didn't expect his combat power to improve so quickly. But when he recovered, the two of them both wanted to understand. This was largely because of Wang Shi's ability to slash the 513 swords. As this, the ability to absorb the opponent's Reiatsu and convert it into one's own, and then attack. Luo Chen looked at Mogi's Zanpakuto, which had changed with interest. "I call it Suong Shiu, it should be called this name." Wang Shi said. She stroked her Zanpakuto, very excited. "I can fight now, just like Mr. Fallen Dust." Wang Shi's Zanpakuto has been successfully understood from the ordinary sword at the beginning. The side of the sword is wider, and the head of the blade has become a cross. There is a gauge or a thermometer in the blade. able to store spiritual pressure. As long as this accumulation is full, can a powerful counterattack be released? Luo Chen tapped his Zanpakudo a few times, and saw that the spiritual pressure accumulation inside slowly rose a certain distance. Thank you, Mr. Luokan, let's go to fight now. Wang Shi is very eager to join the fight, no longer just being protected. At the same time, the battle between the vice captains and the skeleton captains is continuing. Yijiao met Kenpachi of the spirit skeleton. It is better to say that Yijiao took the initiative to come to see Kenpachi. I wanted to fight you for a long time, this time it is a real sword and a real gun to let go. Haha, it's arrogant, but I won't show mercy to my subordinates like the original seed, so be prepared to die. Of course, otherwise it would be meaningless. Yi said with a smile. However, there is no suspense in the battle. Although the corner has already fought with all his strength, the spirit skeleton Kenpachi is even considered. If you don't fight seriously, you can win with only the leader level spiritual pressure suppression, not to mention the real spirit skeleton sword. One corner was already covered with scars and fell to the ground. As expected, the spirit skeleton Janpachi didn't have any left hand, so he went up to make up for the knife. One corner was beaten to the point of excruciating pain, and the wounds spread all over the body. Damn. This cut ends you. Don't even think about it. Wang Shi slashed out with a single sword, and there was still the Reiatsu, snatched, from Luo Chen, and the spirit skeleton sword 8 was hit. Boom. Although the impact is very strong and the effect is also very good, after the spirit skeleton sword 8 flew out, patted the soil on the body, still firm as before, haha, it's really exciting. How come? Don't waver, he's already injured, leave it to me next. Ding. Luo Chen withstood the next attack from spirit skeleton Janpachi and forced him to retreat. Why are you itchy again? You must have some memory for defeating me once. Lingshan Janpachi became angry when he saw Luokan. 4.5 How could I lose to you? Let's fight again. I'm not convinced. At this time, Gong Qin lifted a corner and said, Luokan, can you leave it to me here? I want to avenge the corner. Luo Chen looked at Gong Qin's firm eyes. He couldn't refuse. He nodded, and left with Wang Shi, saying, be careful. Chapter 1312. Wang Shi asked, Mr. Luokan, can you let me try again next time? Luokan nodded. Let's go, I'll take you to various battlefields for a walk. Only Luo Chen can say such things, and if nothing else, these skeleton captains Luo Chen really don't find it difficult. Last time, it was just a secret calculation, it doesn't count. Head to see I won't beat them up. Nozomi came to Byakuya Kuchiki, the skeleton, and Renji and Rukia were fighting against each other. Well, can you let me help? Wang Shi asked tentatively. She wanted 22 to win everyone's trust and recognition of her own strength. Luokan, how could you bring her here? Even if you can fight, it's too reluctant. Renji and Rukia expressed their dissatisfaction, and then they fought fiercely with Kuchiki Byakuya. As a last resort, I changed another place. This place was Dongshilang, the corpse, but it still didn't work. Then it was the left formation of the corpse village. Luanju also shook his head, expressing that it was very embarrassing, and it was the bottom line not to cause trouble here. When the two returned to the park, Wang Shi was very disappointed, because there was no place to need him. Luo Chen was quite confident. Wait, it will be soon. The first person to appear here was the spirit skeleton Zaragi Kenpachi. Whether it was Yijiao, Gongjin or Ichigo, they were all beaten and forced back here. That little girl, you were pretty good at fighting just now. Spirit skeleton Kenpachi said fiercely, but you are the target Inaba is looking for, you can't escape this time. XXX. Luokan, take Mizumi out of here. Ichigo groaned. At this time, the skeleton Tushiro also forced Hisagi and Kira, who were fighting against him, to retreat here, and the two were also scarred and out of breath. Lingshan Dongshilang also saw Wang Shi and Lingshan Kenpachi, and stopped moving, intending to surround the place. Although Luokan made him quite afraid, he was also waiting for news from others. Soon, whether it was the testimony of Spirit Skeleton Village or Kuchiki Byakuya, they all pushed back the vice captains who were fighting with him, forming a situation of siege all at once. The target is her, but that guy Luokan is by his side. Lingu Dongshilang said. They didn't move, indicating that Luokan was also very jealous. Luo Chen said in his heart, I didn't take action against you, so you can just have fun. This time the battle will be handed over to Wang Shi, just to let others see his strength. When the apprentice wins glory, the master certainly has a great sense of accomplishment. Luokan stood up and brought Wang Shi to the open space. All the skeletons and the gods of death were watching their every move. What does Mr. Luokan want to do? Does he want Wang Shi to fight these spirit skeletons? How is this possible? Can she do it with her strength? Icicles of birds. Tushiro, the spirit skeleton, tentatively attacked, but he was absorbed by the Zanpakuto. Absorbed the spiritual pressure. Kuchiki Byakuya added another thought, Kingwozhuan. But there is no doubt that the ghost way was also absorbed by the Zanpakuto, and Wang Shi's nervous cheeks became more and more confident. Did you see it? Wang Shi's ability. Luokan recovered his spiritual pressure from the entire city in an instant, and quietly injected it into Wang Shi's Zanpakuto. Wang Shi, let's make a move. Rain when the red is gone. Wang Shi's Zanpakuto burst out with a red light beam of spiritual pressure, engulfing all the skeleton captains in an instant. Chapter 1313. Luokan just injected a part of his own spiritual pressure. Wang Shi's Zanpakuto can already explode an attack that is close to the captain's level. A beam of light formed, and Wang Shi's Zanpakuto turned into a light cannon in action, streaking across the sky, and the sun was eclipsed. The huge energy bar tore through the air, scanned all the spirit skeletons present, and engulfed them all. They didn't react at all, and they were completely wiped out in it. Not even a single bit of ashes remained. This power. Luo Chen wiped the sweat on his face. Although those spirit skeletons were taken lightly, they could do it in seconds. Luokan didn't expect to kill. Not only Luokan, even the corner and others who were not very optimistic about Wang Shi before were even more shocked. It's over. Although there are many scars, but this time it has resisted the enemy's invasion, and has more combat power like Wang Shi. Can you not be happy? Although most of the power used in this blow is not the strength of Wang Zhen, but it is not easy to control these Reiatsu. After the blow just now, Wang Shi almost collapsed to the ground, but he did not fall down by forcibly supporting the ground with the Zanpakuto. From her pale face, it can be seen that the consumption is very large. Okay, act quickly, Ichigo and Rukia, go and help the wounded. Renji, can you still move tilde? Luokan immediately began to assign tasks. But before he could relax completely, Urahara's communication had already arrived. Luokan, don't let your guard down yet, the number of people is not right. What number? Luo Chen asked. Is it the enemy? That's right, the spiritual pressure I observed from the boundary is more than the captain you defeated. I guess they are still hiding somewhere, don't relax your vigilance. Urahara reminded that he is now searching for the boundary with all his strength. Hoping to find something tricky. Urahara, no need. Luokan stared at the sky, where several cracks opened one after another, and it was so close to here, it was obvious that he was running towards them. What's wrong? They have arrived. Click. The gap in the sky was shattered, and the silhouettes of Shuru Yukataki and Chunsui Jingle broke through. Of course, they were all spirit skeletons. Ho-ho, it's finally here, it's been a long time since the world came. Jingle Chunsui looked around for a week, and set his eyes on Luokan. Diaresis, isn't this Luokan? They're here too. Luo Chen waved his hand to make everyone stop and defend on the spot. Although there were only 2 people this time, the 2 captains were well hidden and had to be guarded. There seems to be an unexpected situation. We are late, Jingle. There is something abnormal in the breaker world. We didn't catch up. Have they all been defeated? Shuru Yukataki asked. It looks like yes, but they have a lot of wounded. Wheatley's got a bargain this time. Jingle Chunsui helped his hat. Luokan planned to let Ichigo and the others evacuate first with Wangshi, and go up to fight. After all, if they were going to compete with these two, Luokan could not guarantee that it would not affect his teammates on the ground. But no one flinched. Looking at Luokan, he felt very uncomfortable. No, I already have such power, how can I still be protected? Chapter 1314. Ichigo was also eager to save people. He wanted to help his companions buy time to retreat, and said, I'll hold them back, you all go. Before Lu Chen could block them, the two of them took 3 steps and 2 steps together. They smeared oil on the soles of their feet instead of slipping away, but charged towards the enemy. Hey, are these 2 people dying? Luo Chen was very helpless. The protagonist was good everywhere, but it seemed that he couldn't change it. Wangshi won't be affected, right? Jingle Chunshui and Yukitaki Shiruro looked at the 2 people rushing up in front of them, and drew out their knives lazily. They didn't even open the first solution. In their eyes, the only thing that really needed to be taken seriously was Luokan. Crescent Moon. Ichigo's several attacks failed to touch Yukitaki Shiruro's sleeve, and every time Yukitaki Shiru's counterattack, Ichigo needed to be fully resisted, but the battle that had just started had already fallen into downwind. Wangshi on the other side was completely treated by Jingle Chunshui as a child wielding a kitchen knife, just dodging, and from time to time, he made melee attacks without using the Zanpakuto at all. Ground. Hun was anxious and shouted, Luokan, go and help them. Luokan nodded, but at this moment, he felt a spiritual pressure behind him, and he was obviously hostile. Captain Unohana. The 61st Way of Binding, the 6th Stand Light Prison. Huu, light strips approached Luokan from behind, and bound Luokan's body in an instant. Luokan didn't deliberately try to defend, but he wanted to see what purpose the opponent had in using these binding paths, and Luokan didn't think Ujawali had only this strength. Ujawali showed her figure and sang again, 6200 step railing. Dozens of pillars flew out horizontally and stabbed at Luokan. If you hit this move, you would be locked in the main movements of the body, making people feel the pain of the body. 2 Dao bindings can deal with falling dust. Bound with chains. Ujawali sang again. This time it was a relatively normal restraint. It was a piece of golden chains, but only after getting close did I realize that each one was as thin as a human waist. This is the end, Luokan, see if you can take it. 5 iron pillars fell from the sky, pressing Luokan under them, 5 pillars of iron. Boom! The entire ground was shaken by this huge iron pillar, spreading like a small earthquake. These are the most effective restraint techniques in the Tao. If there is only one of them, the captain level can also be disconnected by brute force, but continuous being hit so many times, even the captain can't get away. As expected of the Tao binding activated by the captain level, it has a bonus to the power of other gods of death. Luo Chen sighed, but it's not enough to restrain me. Only talk big. These bondages are enough to limit you for more than half an hour. During that time, Juju Wangshi was taken away by us. Ujawali exchanged glances with the 2 people who were fighting in the sky, and they already felt that the victory was in their hands. It seems that your sadness is not because of your weak strength, but because you don't know how weak your strength is. Luo Chen shrank his spiritual pressure and exploded. The 4 bound roads began to emit distorted screams, and the quantum structure inside was gradually torn apart, crushed, and shattered. Chapter 1315. Although the 4 Tao binding Tao tightly bound Luokan's body, these were all illusions, because Luokan had already used spiritual pressure to separate these attacks from his own body. It can be said that he completely avoided the attack. Under the pressure of the huge amount of spiritual pressure from the falling dust, these 4 shackles were like a human being under the ocean 10,000 meters being crushed to pieces in an instant, and they turned into fragments of spiritual particles and scattered under the rare shocked expression of Ujikali. How can that be? Jingle Chunshui and Yukitaki Shiruro suddenly felt a lot of pressure, because this was something that even they couldn't do. Luokan, as expected of you. They knocked off Ichigo and Nozomi with one blow, landed on the ground, and stood with Unokalai. Facing Luokan, they used Shiji, Pisces Carp, Flower Sky and Crazy Bones. Shiruro Yukitaki's Zanpakuto had become two, and Luokan knew that one was used to absorb the opponent's attack, and the other was shot after being boosted, which was quite similar to Wangshi's Zanpakuto. As for Jingle Chunsui, who uses two Zanpakuto at the same time, although he doesn't show his ability very much, he is a very strong opponent in taijutsu. Luokan will not underestimate the enemy too much. They are at each other's throats. They only need a chance to start killing each other. Superior. Jingle Chunsui took the lead. Yukitaki Shuru was supporting at the back, but Ujiwali did not watch as they did when the three of them fought with the commander-in-chief last time, but rushed forward as well. They believed that the threat of Luokan was obvious now. Above the mountain, Ben. Luokan didn't dare to be careless. He opened Shiji, and the nine tails also jumped from his arms, suddenly becoming the size of an adult lion, and his Reiatsu strength also rose to the captain level. Roar! It seemed to say that it hadn't come out for a long time. Even if Luo Chen didn't let him come out, it wouldn't work. After all, there were three captains in front of him. Ninetails restrained Ujikali, because even if Wujiwali chose to participate in the battle, the treatment could still be performed, which was not good for the battle situation, and Luokan faced the remaining two alone. Ding! Ding! Luo Chen's Zanpakuto swung like a wind, and he was about to form a barrier in front of him, but it was still not easy to face the attacks of the four Zanpakuto. Why do you both have two Zanpakuto? That's too cheating, isn't it? Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Haha, Luokan, it's really amazing to hear you say that. Jingle Chunsui smiled, and the attack in his hand was even more cheerful. If it were two general captains, Luo Chen could still defeat them one by one. But Jingle Chunsui and Yukitaki Shuru is obviously different. They are good friends, and their tacit understanding can be said to be one of the best in the Soul Society. After a few tricks, it can only prove that that person is also captain level. Middle. Jingle Chunsui's figure suddenly disappeared, and then appeared directly in Luokan's shadow. It was hard to prevent, but Luokan had already mastered the specific movement of the two of them through the spiritual pressure. So not only did they not get hit, but they could fight back. Dangerous. Absorb. Shiro Yukitaki absorbed the attack instead of Kyoraku Chunsui and returned it to Luokan after multiplying it several times. Luokan hurriedly dodged without resisting, but this time he kept a distance from the two of them. Luokan forced them both to use their abilities, but Luokan was forced back by them, and neither of them felt that they had won. 100 million. Chapter 1316. Enough is enough, let's step back, I'll do it myself. Inaba's voice came out, and the three corpses were also very obedient, and left instantly, leaving the battlefield to Inaba. Luokan, Kujo Mogi, we meet again. Inaba held a Zanpakuto, and this time he planned to take Mochi directly away. Wangshi, stay away from him, I'm here. Luokan stood up and asked Wangshi to step back a little, but Wangshi shook his head. No, Mr. Luokan, you have always said to protect me, but now I must be able to protect myself. Wangshi said firmly. Helpless, Luo Chen could only let her go first. Is this the so-called rebellious period? However, it was obvious that Wangshi had misestimated his own abilities, and just felt that the power of falling dust was his own strength, and he hadn't even gone through a few rounds in front of Inaba. Seeing Wangshi's difficulty, Luo Chen greeted, Ichigo, flank me from left to right. Okay. Luokan opened the solution, Ichigo opened the solution, and the two separated Inaba and Mochi and surrounded them in the middle. But this or that siege obviously has no effect on Inaba. His Zanpakuto ability is to control space. Buzz. The space fluctuated, and Inaba had already appeared behind Luokan. When Luokan felt that he wanted to attack, Inaba appeared behind Ichigo again. Do you hide? No, this is just a small test. Let you understand how big the gap is between us, the next step is the main event. Anaba-zan turn Zanpakuto, restore space. A fiery slash appeared out of thin air, and Luo Chen immediately resisted it, but his brows wrinkled, clearly feeling that this attack was unusual, as this Captain Yamamoto's attack. That's right, I have already memorized Captain Yamamoto's attack. Can you fight against it? Luokan, although you are also very strong, are you worse than Captain Yamamoto? Hee, it's just a slash. When did you consider yourself the captain of Yamamoto? It's ridiculous. Luo Chen was not afraid, but he didn't expect that he would be looked down upon by others. Stubborn. Do you still dare to accept this move from me? Anaba was not angry but delighted. At this time, Ichigo quietly approached, and made a move behind Anaba. Crescent moon is rushing to the sky. Luo Chen's jaw dropped in shock. Ichigo, if I say you sneak attack, why do you have to shout it out? Isn't this guy Anaba already aware of it? Ichigo scratched his head and responded embarrassedly, that's also. Anaba sneered, turned the Zanpakuto, memorized Ichigo's attack, and then stopped moving, just watching. Luokan knew that Anaba was waiting for his attack. It's really tricky, then I'll give you a big one. Luo Chen wanted to break the deadlock. He ascended into the sky, opened the solution instantly, and slashed down with his Zanpakuto. Tailed Beast Jade Slash. Crescent Moon Crush. Ichigo was afraid of Anaba's escape, so he slashed a blow in the corresponding direction. 2 black lights flashed, and Anaba was engulfed in it. Success? Ichigo asked. Luo Chen shook his head, because Anaba's spiritual pressure was still there. The smoke dissipated, and Anaba was actually unscathed. He smiled slightly, and he was already able to turn the Zanpakuto and memorize these 2 attacks. Is this your strength? It's really funny. XXX. Chapter 1317. He remembered the attack just now. Luo Chen carefully observed Anaba's every move. The attack just now was no longer an ordinary attack, it was equivalent to 2 captain-level moves. If such an attack is recovered by Anaba and released with a target, everything around will be hard to escape. Haha, Luokan, I'll take care of you first. Even you can't take this blow, right? Anaba believed that since Luokan had already opened the solution, he would deliberately kill himself, and if he escaped, Jia Down will be his own Jedi counter-kill. Luo Chen flew up into the sky and shouted to him, come at me if you want, don't do anything to them. 22. Anaba smiled contemptuously, clenched his Zanpakuto tightly and followed Luo Chen into the sky. Anyway, they will be killed by me sooner or later, so it's good to deal with you first. I will definitely get Jujio Wangji. Then let's see if you have the ability. Luo Chen condensed his spiritual pressure, not daring to underestimate the move just now, not knowing how much Anaba could recover. Accept the move, Space Restoration. Anaba turned the Zanpakuto, creating a ripple in the space, opening a gap in the surrounding space, and then filling it with the restored space. Then Luokan and Ichigo's move just now reappeared in this space. The people watching on the ground were extremely nervous, because the power of the slash just now was obvious to all, and they couldn't believe that Luo Chen could follow, even if it was his own move. Buzz. Combining the black crescent moon and the red-tailed beast jade slash, the Reiatsu also instantly occupied the entire park. From this aspect alone, Anaba seemed to be a leader-level reaper. Go, tear him apart. With a single finger of Anaba's Zanpakuto, the moving space was fixed, and the slash of the sword full of Reiatsu energy slashed towards Luokan. If it wasn't for Luokan's sight raising the battlefield to a height of 100 meters, the surrounding buildings would have long been around. Was swept away. Tailed Beast Jade Slash. Luokan took it hard, but the stronger Luokan used, the happier Anaba was, because in this way, he could remember the slashes in the current space, and he could remain invincible forever. Mogumi saw Anaba's trick, and she felt that Luokan might lose if she went on like this, so she was extremely anxious. She looked around, everyone didn't have the ability to resolve this crisis, and they can only watch from the sidelines now. It is completely useless to intervene in such a battle. But Wang Shi thought of his Zanpakuto's ability to repel the red Shiu. At this time, well, I can do it, now I can only rely on me. In the sky, Luokan and Inaba were battling leisurely. Although he didn't know what Inaba was thinking, at least Luokan was effortless. There is a stalemate now, but Luo Chen can guarantee that he can delay Inaba, so that he has nothing to do with him, then the opportunity for the teammates below to retreat can also be won. Luokan has done a good job. Even if this ability goes against the sky, Inaba's spiritual pressure is still being used constantly, and there will always be a time when it will run out. Besides, Inaba's spatial memory and recovery ability must have an upper limit, otherwise, killing himself would not have to take so much effort. Chapter 1318. What's wrong with this guy? It's like I can't use up the spiritual pressure. Inaba on the other side was really uncomfortable. He secretly wiped the sweat on his cheeks. Now his use of spiritual pressure can be said to be rising rapidly. After a while it will be completely defeated. Mr. Luokan, I am here. At this juncture, Wang Shi rushed up. She was holding the rewind Shiu, standing in front of Luo Chen, taking over the position of Luo Chen, looking at Inaba Shadow Wolf with countless emotions in her heart. Not good. Inaba knew the ability of Mozumi's Zanpakuto, and he was able to absorb the opponent's Reiatsu and convert it into his own attack, which just restrained his ability. Inaba immediately stopped the sword, but it was too late. Boom! The space restoration performed by Inaba and the Zanpakuto of Mozumi collided, and an explosion occurred in the sky, and these two abilities went berserk at the same time. Luo Chen was shocked by the shock wave for several meters. Not to mention the two people at the center of the explosion, their bodies fell from the smoke, like birds with broken wings, defenseless. Boom! Wang Shi fell to the ground, there were burn marks on his body, the spiritual pressure reaction in his body was almost gone, and the Zanpakuto was also broken into two pieces. This silly girl, she really thinks she is the heroine Tilda. Luokan just hurriedly landed on the ground, hoping to heal her wounds. On the other side, Inaba was better. After all, his combat experience and Reiatsu control ability were much stronger than Wang Shi's. He stood up and patted the dust on his body, feeling a little furious. Why, you want to ruin my affairs and stop me from accomplishing my goal? Inaba still didn't give up his resistance, even though he was surrounded by the gods of death. What are you talking about? Your goal, Luo Chen said, of course, isn't your goal to rule or even destroy the Soul Society and the present world? What's there to say? Inaba didn't answer, but said to Moshi, Mengshi, what about you, don't you want to come with me? Of course she doesn't want to leave with you. Soul stood up and retorted. Where did you find it? It's like you know her well, but the person who knows her best is me, because I am her creator. Inaba smiled proudly, I'll tell you all. The two of us were separated from a son of death. Sure enough, I have already found the clue, but I'm not sure. Luo Chen nodded, although I can't feel the real spiritual pressure. You are very similar in terms of breath, so is this really the case? Wang Shi's face became very gloomy. Even if someone asked her, she didn't answer. She didn't want to admit this fact, but she couldn't get rid of it. Diaresis so. It would have been better if I fell into the abyss alone. Wang Shi looked at the wounded gods of death at this time, and finally made up his mind to leave this world alone. Luokan just wanted to get rid of the scarred Inaba, Li Hao, only to realize that Wang Shi had left. No, does she want to repeat the same mistakes? Inaba smiled slightly. I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry, if I leave with all my strength, you won't be able to stop me. He controlled the space and disappeared in place. Obviously he had already gone after Wang Shi, and no one could detect Wang Shi's spiritual pressure. Luokan covered the entire city with the spiritual pressure to determine Inaba's spiritual pressure so that he could arrive as soon as possible. Chapter 1319. Feel it carefully. This old fox Inaba is very good at hiding his Reiatsu in space, so he can't escape. In the current disadvantaged situation, the only way to do this is to be fully prepared. I hope that Inaba will definitely appear wherever he goes now. Time passed by, and no one bothered Luokan, because they knew that Wang Shi's whereabouts now depended on Luokan to investigate alone, and they couldn't find anything, just like headless flies. Interfere with highly concentrated fallout. Everyone held their breath and didn't dare to speak loudly, but the rescue operation for the wounded was still in full swing, and Ichigo's upper and lower eyelids were constantly fighting, and he couldn't hold it any longer. It's not because I stayed up all night last night, or because this battle exhausted my stamina, but because I completely lost my ability. No, I can't fall at this time. But the plan couldn't keep up with the changes, and Ichigo's consciousness gradually began to blur, and then his eyes darkened, and he fell to the ground. Luo Chen was taken aback, but he didn't expect that a household would receive a secret injury. This is not a spiritual overdraft at all, this is a complete relief of spiritual pressure. For the god of death, this is equivalent to losing the ability of the god of death completely. It is a very dangerous thing. Luo Chen can't care about anything else and separates a trace of spiritual power. At this very moment, Inaba's Reiatsu suddenly reacted. He was on a mountain thousands of meters away from him. He must have been there too, and he had already encountered and might have already fought. Hurry up and take this potion for Ichigo, I'll go after him now. Luo Chen took out the potion and threw it at Rukia, and then the whole person quickly rose into the air. On Wang Shi's side, her destination is very clear, that is the rift that was discovered before, as long as you can reach that place. But she was quickly stopped by Inaba, unable to move forward any longer. Hee, come back with me, you should be happy to complete this test. He approached step by step. Wang Shi was reluctant to back down, but her Zanpakuto had been temporarily broken, and now she could do nothing but escape. It's a pity, you can't even escape. Inaba suddenly controlled the space and appeared directly behind Wang Shi, holding her tightly. Inaba, I found you. Luokan saw Inaba in the mountains and forests, but he didn't see Wang Shi. Although he was puzzled, he still looked up together. The strange thing is that Inaba did not resist, but just let Luokan be slaughtered. After the slash, his body was slowly dissipated. He smiled. You came to the wrong place, Luo Chen, since my Zanpakuto can remember space, of course, I can also restore a me. After saying this, Inaba's avatar disappeared because of the heavy damage, and Luokan understood that Inaba's main body had successfully taken Wang Shi away. Ichigo woke up from the dream, looked at Urahara and Luokan in front of him in a daze, and asked, how long have I slept? It didn't take long, just the length of a nap. Urahara replied. Luokan asked directly, you boy, how long has this situation happened, and you, Urahara, won't you keep hiding it? Chapter 1320. Ichigo interrupted immediately, it's not about Mr. Seki Urahara, because this is what I asked. I'm afraid you and Orihime, Ishida, Rukia and others are worried. We are worried about your inexplicable accident. Luo Chen retorted. If it wasn't for Mr. Yixin entrusting you to me, I wouldn't be too lazy to take care of this. Luokan was very helpless. Now that Ichigo has completely lost the ability of the god of death, how should he explain to Kurosaki Yixin? Although Luokan's strength is higher than Yixin, he is also a close relative of the two. Kurosaki Yixin belongs to the elders. Even if he has been considered a recluse, if Ichigo has any 3 strengths and 2 weaknesses, Luokan has already done a good job of being cut by Kurosaki Yixin. Tilda realized. In fact, Luokan is also wondering what would happen if the protagonist of this world dies. This is not a part of the protagonist trial. After all, it is not uncommon to set incapacitated. It seems that there is nothing to worry about. After saying that, Luokan still asked, Urahara, I see your calm face. You must have come up with something. If you haven't already, hurry up and use your wise mind to come up with something. Urahara spread out his hands, knowing that nothing could fill Luokan's eyes. Yes, there is indeed a way, but this move is only theoretically feasible at present. When Ichigo heard this, he immediately said, you too, don't worry about me for now. This can be discussed later, but the most important thing is to see the truth. When Luo Chen heard this, he sighed and said with remorse, it's my fault. If I could be faster, maybe I could save Wang Zhen. But then his tone changed, and he winked at Urahara. So what is needed now is to improve our combat power to rescue Wangshi. You are indispensable. As for time, don't worry, Mr. Urahara will definitely be able to break the boundary. Move your hands and feet a little bit. Urahara nodded, reassuring the two of them. Ichigo was very moved. You should be the twin walls of the soul world, one with superior intelligence and one with superior force. What nonsense are you talking about? Burnt out. I feel it, I feel it. So what should I do next? Urahara cleared his throat. I thought, since Inaba said that he can retrieve data from Kudu, it means that he has mastered the method to enter Kudu, although my side is only at the theoretical stage. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Speak quickly. Luokan urged Urahara to take out a small prop similar to a certain robot cat to resolve the crisis, and Urahara took out an instrument. This is a detector, which can help find Kurosaki Ichigo's spiritual child in the midst of the hustle and bustle. It's not too late, let's go now. 0. Is it my illusion? The meaning of your words seems to exclude me. That's right, you don't have any spiritual power right now. If you go to the realm, you will die. This time, it's up to me. Luo Chen replied, after all, apart from Aizen, I'm the only one who can forcefully restrain me. Even if there is an accident, it won't hurt me. These words are well-founded and convincing, and Ichigo doesn't say anything anymore, because he knows himself best, and now this or that physical condition, let alone breaking the boundary, even ordinary battles are completely useless. Save every battle strength, we have to go to the Soul Realm to save Wangshi. After that, Luokan and Urahara went to the ground floor of the Urahara store, ready to face Judo in the Boundary Realm. 100 million. Chapter 1321. After coming to the underground, Luokan was eager to ask, Mr. Urahara, what preparations have you made? Take this instrument. There is a part of the protective spirit in this instrument. When it detects other spirits, it will send out a signal, and then you can look in that direction. In short, it is a radar. Urahara took out something similar to a mobile phone. There was a screen on the front showing the range and scanning position of the 530 scan, and there was an antenna-like thing on the back. It is this antenna-like thing that is a containment device. After getting close to the spiritual child, you can pull it open and inhale it. You don't have to spend much effort. Urahara explained. Luo Chen nodded, took the 9 tails off his shoulders, and said, the place to go next is quite dangerous, wait for me to come back. When Kyubi heard this, he was very unhappy. Don't underestimate me, I'm a super captain level existence now. Fallen Dust can clearly feel the 9-way wanted to express something, so he was helpless. This guy's temper was also very stubborn, so he had to take it with him. The journey is smooth, I will send you to a place very close to Judo within the boundary, be mentally prepared, and I can tell you something, don't resist. Urahara's special warning was enough to show how seriously he took this matter. If you exert force, this jelly might burst in your hand like a jelly. Luokan scratched his head, he was about to say this possibility, if he didn't hold back, if he didn't control his Reiatsu when Kudu came, this Kudu might be gone. I didn't expect to be seen through by you, I'll try my best. Luo Chen also didn't want to miss an opportunity. At that time, Urahara would have to recalculate to wait for the emergence of Ninjutsu. Let's go. Urahara opened the gate of crossing the boundary, and Luokan stepped in. The two communicated through the device just now. Urahara knew that Luokan was walking towards the depths of the boundary. Duanji is quiet, although it has always been like this, but this time, the feeling of Luokan is different. Maybe it is because the current Duanji has been controlled by the enemy. Hey, by the way, isn't the world being controlled by Inaba? Mr. Urahara, how can you control it? XXX. Urahara said confidently. Who doesn't give back? When I competed with him for the control of the boundary, I deliberately fell behind, but I actually left it behind, and now I can slightly modify some parameters under his supervision. So the time is also very tight. Please don't increase the workload for me. Of course, of course. Luo Chen walked around the boundary, making himself completely relaxed, making sure that he would not fight back when faced with a sudden confrontation. At this time, Urahara's warning arrived. Luoken, Jutu is here. There are still 500 meters, 400 meters. There are less than 10 seconds left before the contact. I know, I already feel it. Wait for my good news. Luo Chen put the nine tails in his arms, because if they separated accidentally, they might be thrown to both sides of time, which is also Luo Chen the reason for planning to come alone. Boom boom boom. A loud sound like a train, a huge body 4 or 5 stories high, it is the incarnation of the law of breaking the world. When the power of falling dust was still small, he had to be careful, because this thing is the same as the existence of the sky. Chapter 1322. But now in front of Luo Chen still has to be careful, or else Shutu will be accidentally destroyed by Luo Chen. Entered. Urahara held his breath tightly, watching whether he succeeded or not. If he didn't enter and was just swept away, it would be useless. Squeak. The voice of the communication was blurred, and Urahara's heart raised in his throat. A minute passed, and there was still no reply from Luoken's side. Whether it was received or transmitted, it was all silent. Hey, can you hear me? Urahara, I'm in now. Luoken, you are all right. Urahara breathed a sigh of relief. Luoken suddenly became afraid. It's not right, Urahara, listening to your tone, it sounds like you are really unsure. We'll talk about this later, focus on the task first. Okay, let's talk about it when I go out. Ichigo's spiritual son is the most urgent task, but this Kutu is really strange. Luoken looked at this magical scene and couldn't help but sigh. There is a huge space without direction in Kutu, which is not empty, but full of various spirits, which can be said to be flowing all the time for thousands of years. This place seems to be the epitome of the universe. Luoken's body swept through waves of spiritual sub-streams, some violent, some icy, some with heat, some extremely beautiful, and some sparkling. It is an independent space of time and space. Luoken was like a fish, scurrying around freely in the hustle and bustle, and the nine tails also showed their heads. It seemed like a flowing night sky, and they actually lingered for a moment. No, it won't be too late to come again in the future, it's better to say that we must find an exit. Luoken took out the scanner that Urahara had given him, and started scanning nearby. Not here, I'll take a look over there. Do. The scanner suddenly issued a prompt, and Luoken saw that the surrounding polarized light points and the one in his hand resonated and flickered together, and they were gradually approaching. That's it. Falling dust can be absorbed by turning on the instrument. Luo Chen did as he did, opened the container, and then all of Ichigo's spirits were automatically absorbed, but at this moment, a storm of spirits suddenly formed in Jutu. Phew! The huge amount of spiritual children began to run wild, and Luo Chen covered the body with spiritual pressure to ensure that they would not be hurt by the impact, and then began to find a way to escape from the area. Huh, what is that? Luo Chen saw a shining object not far away, and Reiatsu was clearly Ichigo himself. After Luo Chen approached, he observed it carefully, and immediately frowned. What's going on? Shouldn't Ichigo be recuperating in the Urahara store? Then who is this? Forget it. Don't care. Just do it. Luoken pulled up Ichigo, and started to escape from Lingziliu. When he came back to his senses, he had already left Kutu, but only nine tails were left by his side. Luoken, this way. It was really hard work to successfully complete the recycling work. Urahara specially opened the door to meet Luoken, but Luoken was still immersed in the experience just now, unable to extricate himself. Luoken shook his head and planned to ask Ichigo directly, so he said, yes, it's not too late, let's help Ichigo recover his spiritual power now. Chapter 1323. Back at the Urahara store, Ichigo's physical strength has almost recovered, but his spiritual power is not at all. he is just an ordinary person. Mr. Urahara, are you going to restore my power now? Ichigo asked excitedly. Not yet, Urahara said regretfully. I need technical support, so now we need to infiltrate the Soul Realm, the Technical Research Bureau, and restore you there. Then it's not too late, let's go quickly, just go and get Wangshi back after you reply. Luo Chen suggested, this is the most direct and effective method at present. In the Soul Realm, Inaba at this time had already put Wangshi in a container. Wangshi was filled with liquid, motionless, and fell into a deep sleep. Next, Inaba will use the same method to achieve fusion. But at this moment, the alarm of the boundary suddenly sounded. What's going on? Are they coming again? Go and stop it. Inaba felt deeply that there were many dreams in the night, so he handed over this matter to the skeleton captains, and started and implemented the fusion program in full swing. As long as the results are completed, everything will be fine. After receiving the order, the captains of the skeletons immediately rushed to the gate to defend, and were always ready to fight against the people who rushed out, but they waited left and right, but no one came. Lingshan Jonpachi couldn't wait any longer. As soon as he got angry, he rushed in. The other captains were very helpless. Hey, where are you going, Tilda? Rather than waiting like this, we might as well go and beat them to the ground, saving time instead. The spirit skeleton sword didn't turn back. No way, the other captains thought it made sense, so they went in together, and as expected, they immediately met Renji, Rukia, Ishida and the others. The two sides fought together, but they were fighting, and it felt that something was wrong. Zakagi Kenpachi was the first to notice the abnormality. It's not right, these guys don't use all their strength to fight, and most of them are dodging. I don't feel like they want to fight us. No, are you being deceived? Is this a trick? Before they realized it, Luokan, Nine Tails, Ichigo, Urahara and Soul had already traveled to the Soul Realm from the other side of the Broken Realm. Isn't this the gap that broke the boundary that Wangshi was going to cut on his own? Luo Chen was still startled when he knew that Urahara was going to set off from there. That's right, no matter how they think about it, they would never have thought that we would take such a big risk to go from here to the Soul World. Urahara made a good calculation. Luokan could already see what Urahara's intentions were. Diaresis, you guys are very leisurely. I can use Reiki to support the whole world, but it's worth it to catch them off guard. That's why I arranged for Renji, Rukia and the others to enter through normal channels. Speaking, everyone has come out of the Broken Realm. This time it is very calm. There is a completed spiritual pressure escort. There is no suddenness in this Broken Realm. They came safely, Li Hao, to the soul of the Soul Realm. In court. How can we keep them from discovering us? Ichigo asked. I can say now that the Reiatsu is basically zero, how about you? Cheng Cheng smiled bitterly and said, yes, this time it's my turn to be a tool man. Then Luo Chen quickly expanded his spiritual pressure, almost with all his strength, and the entire spiritual court was included in it in less than a second. Chapter 1324. Fortunately, the captain's level has been transferred to the piercing gate. Otherwise, although my Reiatsu can make them invisible, they can still feel it subtle when it is swept. With Luokan's assistance, everyone entered the Technical Research Bureau without any effort to destroy. Urahara can be said to be well-versed. Who called him the founder of the Technical Bureau? That's it. Now I just need to convert Ichigo's spiritual power into Yaikunwan and take it. In theory, the power of the God of Death can be restored. Urahara started to operate in front of the computer. He imported the spirits collected in the instrument, and then started to run the program, and then a righteous soul pill was slowly produced. Urahara, Inaba once mentioned inadvertently that he has no way to create Ichigo's spirit skeleton. That's because he lacks key elements and can only complete a part of it. After all, Ichigo still has an empty power in his body, Urahara explained. Minutes and seconds passed, and the Yishin pills in the container finally took shape and reached the final stage, but the good times did not last long. Just when everyone thought everything was going well, an accident happened. No, Inaba discovered our whereabouts. At this time, an alarm sounded in the entire room, and the instrument began to run wild. The Yishin pills that had just been condensed began to dissipate and gradually disappear. No, Yoshikun Maru is about to be completed. Soul shouted. Boom. The spiritual energy inside was vented, forming an abnormal explosion. The entire room was blown apart, the floor was lifted, and the ceiling was smashed down. With such a big movement, it is estimated that the nearby death gods will be aware of it, and the perception of the captain level is of course more acute. Are you all right? Luo Chen had already used the spiritual pressure to protect his companions, so it was only a matter of time before Lulu. Ninetails got under the ruins to search. It patted Ichigo's cheek. Ichigo made a sound. It was a painful moan. Luokan moved the cabinet that fell down on him. Are you all right, Ichigo? Hey, yours. The spiritual pressure has recovered. Ah, I'm fine, I feel great, as expected of Mr. Urahara, I've regained the power of death now. Urahara stood up from the ground, patted the dirt on his body, picked up his soul, and said, get out of here, it's already exposed. At this moment, Ichigo covered his head in pain, and almost lost his balance. He fell on the ground, looking very painful, and then raised his head, only to see that one of his eyes had turned black, and his body was exuding void breath. No, the power of the blur is going to have the upper hand. Luo Chen hurriedly used the spiritual pressure to guide him. Ichigo felt a little better, and the signs of the blur were gradually suppressed. Urahara said, it seems that the explosion just now caused the incomplete absorption of power. This is troublesome. It may take some measures from Inaba in the courts to reverse it. Anyway, get out of here first and look elsewhere. Luo Chen and Urahara supported Ichigo, their souls mounted on Kyuubi's body and moved towards the outside. But at this time, the encirclement has been formed, and the captains of the skeleton have long been attracted by such a big movement. It's really endless. You have to be defeated 3 times by me, why don't you remember each one? Luo Chen said. Chapter 1325. What appeared in front of Luokan and the others were the captains of the skeletons who had been defeated all the time. Now they were all like fierce gods possessed, looking at Luokan and wishing to devour him alive. You can only get here if you talk big, Luokan. They gradually narrowed the encirclement, and Luokan was attacked by the enemy. Urahara also drew out his Zanpakuto and prepared to fight the enemy. But in any case, this situation is definitely not suitable for fighting. Ichigo is weak and on the verge of going berserk. After that, they have to save Wangshi. If it is too late, it may really fall short. I don't have time to entangle with them now, Mr. Urahara, I'll hold them all down. You guys take the opportunity to break out and hide, take Ichigo, and go look for Wangshi. Luo Chen made a calm judgment. Effective way. Don't even try to escape either of you. The spirit skeleton Kuchiki Byakuya planned to surround them directly, and the spirit skeleton Tushiro could solve it at any time, and the impatient spirit skeleton Zaragi Kenpachi had already rushed up. At this moment, a phantom descended from the sky, forcing Kenpachi to retreat temporarily. Yi, you are here. Luo Chen was overjoyed, but then he was very worried, because now such strength is still not enough to break through the encirclement. You and Mr. Urahara act together. Yi shook his head, you don't have to. I brought helpers here, so you can go first. Help. Luokan used the spiritual pressure to detect, and felt that the leader-level spiritual pressure was approaching, and they were all familiar, it's them, but I heard that they are missing Tilda whereabouts. That's right for S-Lingting, but we were actually saved by Kongyi. Yi explained, after you were swallowed up by the broken world, we immediately fell into a disadvantage, and we couldn't hold on any longer. Now, Broken came to them and said, at this time, Lord Kong arrived. She temporarily forced the spirit skeletons back and took us to escape from the S-Spirit Court, and then we kept healing at her. Luokan, Urahara, don't worry, we'll leave it here. Everyone, go first. Luo Chen took Urahara, Ichigo, Soul and Nine Tails out of the siege and ran towards the outside of the technical bureau. Where to escape? The skeletons knew that the threat of these two people was completely greater than those of the captains, so they blocked them, but they were still a step too late and were intercepted by the captains. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. You said that the Kuchiki family can only have one head, then I tell you, he is still me. Kuchiki Byakuya stopped the spirit skeleton Kuchiki. And in the same way, every captain stopped his corpse. Not long after he left the technical administration, Ichigo almost ran away again. The pressure of his death spirit and the power of emptiness were struggling in his body. Ichigo was so sore that he could no longer move. Luokan carried him to a warehouse and sighed deeply. It seems that Ichigo can't follow us anymore now. There's no way, just put Ichigo here first, and I'll seal him down. Until then, Ichigo, you must hold on. Urahara suggested. Although it was extremely painful, Ichigo nodded. Well, Luokan, Mr. Urahara, I will try my best, you can rest assured. Luo Chen still couldn't let his heart down. Nine Tails, just stay with Ichigo here, let me know if anything happens. 100 million. Chapter 1326. Roar. Jue wagged his tail, jumped down from Luokan's shoulder, crouched beside Yihu, and agreed. With the preparations in place, Luokan, Urahara, and Soul set off on the road again. This time, with the help of Urahara's invisibility props, the three of them got on the road very quickly. XXX. It's here, it's here. Urahara stopped step. Wait, isn't this still the Technical Research Bureau? Luo Chen asked Wu San curiously, why did you leave before that? Urahara smiled mysteriously. This is called tactics. We need to create an illusion for the enemy. Okay, let's go in. I still have information to check. Entering the Technical Research Bureau again, Urahara ran directly to the reference room, where there is information about all the technical research bureaus, including the personal data of the team members and various materials. Luokan began to lay out all the currently known information, combining all the information we have received from both parties. Wangxi and Inaba said that they were the first to transform their souls, and Inaba also said that he and Wangxi were originally created by a god of death, and Inaba also said that he is the founder of the transformation of the soul. Slow down, I'm going to faint. Soul's thoughts were chaotic for a while, and he couldn't sort out the relationship. Luokan directly came to the conclusion, that is to say, if Inaba and Mizuki are really the same god of death to transform their souls, this god of death must be the creator of the transformed soul. So I set the search interval between when I left and when Inaba came to the 12th division. I think there must be a death god missing, but you see, Urahara called the two of them to him. All the information here has been tampered with. You can only go to the library to check the records of the 13th team of the Guardian. Luokan is very popular, because flipping a book is not as simple as a computer query, and doing such a large-scale investigation will definitely be time-consuming. After a while, the three of them quietly came to the library. Facing the vast sea of books, Luo Chen scratched his head. Even Urahara was a little embarrassed, but that's all he can do now. Soul put the books they needed in front of them one by one. Time passed by minute, the atmosphere was depressed, and only the sound of flipping books could be heard constantly at the scene. I'm so annoying, let me fight is okay, if it's such a delicate job of finding things. After a while, Luo Chen yawned and just knocked over a book. That's it, Luokan, you're really lucky. Urahara saw a certain book on the ground and noticed the clue, it's the roster of the 10th division. Did you find anything? It's great to find out. This person, Yuzan Fakey guessed it was him. Is this person the original seed of Moshi and Inaba, the founder of soul transformation? Where is he now? Luo Chen leaned forward. That's right, do you see the cross? This shows where he is now. Come with me. Urahara scattered the books on the ground. Soon after leaving the library, Urahara rushed to the position of the second division. A new road was hidden behind the tortuous road. It was progressive, and the beginning and the end could not be seen. This is the well-known maggot nest in Lingting. The people detained here are all people who are a potential threat to the Soul Society. It seems that the school Yuxuan Feiki Kengyenshuan is worthy of him.